decided that instead of posting on Twitter, I was going to post all my thoughts on a video, and then I'll either put them all together into one, or maybe I'll just go ahead and make, I don't know. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this. What I can tell you is this, and I find this fascinating. We all watch corporations talk a good game about how this year they didn't make as much money, or they had losses, or whatever. And I want you to think about this for a second, because I went to college for business. And one thing that nobody could ever justify to me, but it's the way things are done, is when a corporation tells you that they didn't make X amount of dollars, like they had $20 million in losses, for example. But then you look at their sales and it says they made $166 million, and profits were, let's say, $5 million. Okay? I'm making the numbers up as I go because I'm trying to make a point. That means that they estimated that they were going to make 25 million, and they only made 5, so they lost 20 million. If you're in any type of business, you know what I'm saying is true, because companies, especially big corporations, base all their numbers on estimates. And estimates are based on previous year's figures. So, for example, 2020 was a bad year for every corporation pretty much across the board, right? Well, not all of them, because I would have to think that pharmaceuticals and hospitals had bigger rates than ever. But the average retail operation probably had losses that year. So when they do the estimates for the next year, they have to take this year's 2020 numbers as a basis for their estimates. Now, I know corporations that take the last 3 years, they average them out, and that's and then they add 20%, and that's what they estimate for the next year. Everybody has their formula. But the bottom line is this: they base it on previous year's figures, which doesn't take into account what can happen in the year. Because they usually go up, they don't go down. Like if they had $20 million in sales last year, they're going to think they're going to make $25 million next year. That's how they roll. Whether you agree with them or not, or you care or not, keep in mind that when they tell you that they lost money, they're not talking about actually losing money. They're talking about losing the estimated money they were going to make. Which, if you think about it, is a really messed up way to think about things. Because the last time I looked, you don't go around your house thinking, well, this year I was making $15 an hour, so next year I'm going to be making $17 an hour. So if I only have $500 in the bank, I should have had $1,500. Nobody works that way except for corporations. Now, this has a lot to do with other things like taxes and whatever, and how the valuations for companies, and this is why some people get in trouble. Like, for example, when you see this whole thing with the case with Trump, where he evaluated his company at a certain value, but then he evaluated the company at a different value for taxes and a different value for banks. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about the fact that this man just pulled a number out of his ass. And by the way, he's not the only one who does it. He's just one of the ones that have gotten caught. If you do a valuation based on your own head, let's do it that way, you're not taking into account any realistic numbers, and then you carry that out everywhere, like in your taxes and in your finance, banking information. That's a different thing. But when you take, let's say you say I made $5 million, and you go to the tax man and tell them, no, I only made $1 million. But you go to the bank and tell them, no, I made $5 million. That's fraud, because A, probably didn't make either one of those two numbers. You need the realistic numbers. But more importantly, you are telling a bank an information that is misleading in order for you to get more money to borrow, which you may or may not be able to pay. Now, keep in mind, if you and I go to the bank and we ask for a loan, they're going to ask us for pretty much everything except for blood to verify that we make that much money. But when you go to big corporations and millionaires and billionaires, they're not as specific. which is another topic for another day, but because I'm going to digress one more time just for one thing. Keep this in mind, if you, especially if you work for corporate America, because I don't know about you, but this used to piss the crap out of me. And it is this idea that the president and the CEO, whatever, is going to tell you, well, you know, we have to let 25% of the people go because we didn't make the numbers that we were supposed to make. Remember, they're basing that off estimates, one. But two, and more importantly, that same CEO that's telling you that he's going to let go 25% of his people because they don't have enough, they didn't make enough money, is the same asshole that probably made 20, 30, 40 million dollars last year because he didn't cut his salary to make sure that the numbers were good. He's going to cut you. When you hear people talking about how much they hate corporate America, this is why. This is exactly why. We have gone to a point where everything is about money. We don't care about anything or anyone except for money. Now, I've never been that way, so that's probably why I'm always broke. But the reality is, corporations base everything on numbers, and they make them up most of the time. When you look at the real numbers, you realize that, you know, something ain't right. You can make a valuation, and let me be very clear about one point. Valuations are based on what you think a company is going to make in a group of years. Not like, let me put it to you this way. When you decide that your value, let's say you have a company. You built your company from the ground up, and you think your company is worth $5 million. And you sell it for $5 million. The reason why you sold it for $5 million is because the person that bought it from you thinks that in the next 2 or 3 years they're going to be able to make the $5 million and then make even more money in the future. And I'm talking about profits here, okay? So that takes a little bit of speculation on the part of the person selling the company and the person buying the company. And of course the bank's involved and whatnot. That's one thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about valuations that are based on numbers that people pull out of their head because they think their company is worth $20 billion because my name is well, if you sell the company, your name's no longer going to be attached to the corporation. So what does that do to the, you know what I mean? That's one thing. The second thing is that just because you think your name is worth $20 billion doesn't necessarily mean that it is. The most recent example we've seen with that is Twitter. Twitter was sold by a ridiculous amount of money to a foolish man who, personally, I think there was an agenda behind him taking over Twitter, but that's another topic for another day in another video that's coming up. But here's my issue, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. I did go to business school, so I don't think I'm entirely wrong on this. But here's the thing. He took a company that was worth, I believe, 25% of what he paid for it. And then proceeded to basically dismantle it. And now he is desperate trying to find money, allegedly, to make up the difference. That company was never going to be worth that much money because Twitter did not offer that much. Twitter was a great place for people. It was like, Twitter was like the public plaza. I'm thinking piazza because I'm learning Italian. It was like the public square. You go there, you say your thing, you move on. Unfortunately, like all social media, they've decided to sell ad space to make money out of these public spaces. And at the end of the day, they're corporations. They can do whatever they want. The thing about all of these people and all of these corporations is that they don't have a balance. If you go to a place like YouTube, you can buy something that you pay $10, $15, $20 a month and you don't see any advertising at all. I do that. Or you can just click and skip the ads. But keep in mind that if you're watching somebody you like and you skip the ad, they're not getting paid. So maybe you don't want to do that. But here's the thing. I think YouTube does it right in terms of, okay, I'm gonna put this many ads on the videos, and the creator themselves can decide if they don't want that many ads. Now, I do believe that now they put ads on videos even if they're not monetized channels, so you have to keep an eye on that too. But the bottom line is that when you watch TV, normally you have ads on your TV. You don't always get to skip them. You know what I mean? Other social medias like Facebook and Twitter, unfortunately, they have made it so that you see more ads than you actually see your friends post. And I think that's where the imbalance is. If they would make it so that, number one, you can opt out of the advertising, and I'm not talking about paying for it. I'm talking about the fact that you don't want to see as much advertising, and I can see more of my friends' posts, then that would be something to consider. Unfortunately, they don't have any consideration for you. You just plaster ad after ad after ad. And if you see the ads that are being plastered on Twitter, for example, right now, they're really scary. They are. They are not taking any consideration into whether or not you want to see that kind of content or not. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's problematic. But again, going back to the whole thing about valuations, when Twitter was purchased, it was purchased under probably the assumption that this person was going to be able to recoup their money in 2 or 3 years. You can't recoup what you don't make. When you talk about how much money a company makes, let's say a company says they make $20 million a year. How much of that money is actual profit? If it's a healthy company, there's a couple of $1 million there that are profit. But when you finish paying all of your associates, all your employees, all your bits and bobs, how much money do you have left over after you've paid everything? The electricity, the water, the buildings, the rentals, whatever you have. Whether you're a brick and mortar operation or you're just online. Whether you spend money on advertising or you don't. Every little thing you can think of that is a cost to the company. After you pay all that, how much money do you have left over as profit? Pure profit. Not what you pay your stakeholders. Pure profit. How much do you have? If you don't have any money as pure profit, you might be breaking even, and that might not be a bad thing. But if you're not breaking even and you're not getting a profit, I wouldn't invest in a company like that. I don't know if Twitter was breaking even or not. What I do know is that the number 5, I think it was 5 billion, that was before salaries and all this other stuff. And then then the new owner decided to start cutting costs by removing people that were essential. Feeling safe on social media is essential, and he decided to destroy that. Allowing misinformation and conspiracy theories is essential to be monitored. He's not doing that. In fact, he's the first one spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories, which makes people not want to hang out on your platform anymore. Personally, I spend most of my day on YouTube. I used to spend a lot of time on Twitter while watching videos on YouTube, but I don't do that anymore because it's just, there's too much information that is not worth me having. And I am not going to sit here and argue with every moron on the planet on why their idea of what's happening in the world is incorrect. If you don't have a level of education, a minimal level of education because you skip class all the time and you never made it to a history class and you don't see how history keeps repeating itself, I don't have time for you. But the bottom line is still this, and I keep digressing. The number one problem with valuations and with this idea that we did not make or we lost this much money is that corporations are basing those numbers on their speculation, on their calculations of how much money they will make next year. So what I'm saying is, right now, some poor idiot somewhere in a company is going, oh, it's the 12th of the month and we have not made $1 million already. So that means we're losing money this month. No, you're not. If the money that's coming in pays for everybody's salaries and pays for everything you're spending, and you have $2 to your name after everything is said and done, you haven't lost money. But you're sure as hell going to milk it as if you did. There's something really wrong with that idea. I'm sorry, but I don't agree. What do you think? Thanks for watching. Bye.